Hey gang, it's Will from Tested.
And it's Norm from Tested.
Norman Chan, the day of judgment is upon us.
It is time.
It's March. Wait,
Well,
it's May, or maybe June.
June. You've been using the Apple Watch for over a month now, 6 weeks.
5 weeks exactly, actually.
5 weeks, and we deem that a good amount of time for you to not only figure out what you like about it, what you think it does well, but where it misses some points. Long-term use.
Long-term use. I mean, my feelings about this changed dramatically over the 5 weeks. At first, I was really down on it. There's been one software update since then, the 1.01 update. That's improved some stuff. I have a good idea about how I would use this watch for a year or more after using it for 40 days, 35 days.
So this is going to be a long video. We're going to go in depth with the watch, but if you just want to know what Will thinks about it, well, what do you think about it?
I think it is really good at notifications in exactly the same way that a Pebble is. Because it's an Apple product, you have a little bit more granular control over notifications, but that's not something that you can emulate that using a Pebble or another smartwatch if you wanted relatively easily. The other stuff that the Apple Watch adds is kind of a mixed bag. So if you look at the watch, like, it has apps, which is great, except for sometimes you have weird stuff like this. See these two circles right here? Those are apps that are just stalled. I can't uninstall them.
Wow.
Like, I could probably remove them from the phone using the Apple Watch app on the phone. It's stuff that I don't care about. I think it's OpenTable and the Apple Store app. But app load times are really slow, especially for non-native apps. Like, here's Overcast. It's going to take a few seconds to load. Sometimes the watch goes to sleep while you wait for the app to load. It's not all the stuff that it does that's not notifications and maybe communication are a little bit janky. And then the stuff that it does that's okay is like all the other stuff is sometimes a mixed bag. Like, sometimes it works really well, sometimes it works terribly. It's all over the place.
And its strengths are really in its industrial design.
Yeah, I mean, I love the industrial design of this watch. The Apple bezel effect is in full effect here. Like, if you look here, I'm going to tilt. It looks skinny, and then all of a sudden, whammy! It's super fat. They're doing design work that's unlike anything else. Those interchangeable bands. I mean, you've worn a watch for a while. I've worn a watch for a while. Usually, you either take the watch to the jeweler or you spend like 20 minutes with a pair of fine nose tweezers to switch the bands. This I can literally pop it off. It takes like a second. You press the button in the back here, and it slides right off. And you can change to another band in literally a minute.
I took mine off in the same amount of time.
Ooh, that's good. Do yours have a button?
There's a button.
It's just for that particular watch, right?
Yes.
So, like, the digital crown, I think, is really nice. It's a great way to interact with this. It lets you access stuff much more quickly and without crufting up the screen, which is really good. And
they thought it through, but whether they actually accomplished what they thought through in the software,
it feels like a first generation product. Like, that's the big takeaway. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. We'll get into that in just a minute. The taptic feedback is also really good. Like, it feels completely different than a vibration on a traditional watch or phone. You can't ignore it, and it makes it literally feels like somebody's whacking on your wrist. Go to the Apple Store, try it out if you haven't yet.
All right. So where do you want to start?
Let's start with industrial design.
Okay.
I think it looks a lot better in person than it does in photos. Especially the pillbox shape. This is the stainless steel model. It's the 42 millimeter model. There's two sizes, 38 and 42. And for our intents and purposes, it comes in stainless steel and aluminum cases. Other than that, the functionality is the same. The stainless steel one has the sapphire crystal, which I have to say seems impervious to this point. I have little micro scratches on the case where I've just brushed into things, brushing into rivets on my jeans, bumping into corners as I walk around places.
If you took a stainless steel knife and hit that watch, just the glass with it,
it's
would
fine.
you nick it?
I don't believe so.
Wow.
Yeah. I haven't tried that for obvious reasons.
There are a bunch of YouTube videos where people test the durometer and durability of it.
Yeah, I think one of the things I want to do is I had to replace my phone and got the watch at about the same time because I dropped the phone and smashed the screen. In a month or two, I want to go over to Adam's where he has the dissecting scope and put both of them under the dissecting scope and see what the micro abrasions on the surfaces look like.
When you say micro abrasions, that means, like, for example, if you have a new phone, and compare that with a phone that you've used for a year, even though you might not have any big noticeable scratches, if you look up close, you'll see little tiny little divots.
It's the stuff that you see when you're out in the bright sunlight and it shows up as like little reflections. It almost looks like specks of dust on your screen.
Hopefully you don't see that on your watch.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully the watch holds up better than that. The taptic feedback stuff is really, really good. I turned on the prominent alert setting, which is, it's actually in the watch app, so I'm not going to get it out. But
So let's explain what taptic feedback, how that works.
Okay.
Now, unlike phones and other smartwatches which have a vibration motor, which is basically a small little unit.
Mm-hmm. It's a motor with an off balanced weight on it, basically.
And the weight moves around that determines the strength of the vibration. Here, instead of shaking the watch, it's actually just pulsing in one direction.
Like the upshot is, instead of it moving like this, it's just going punch, punch, punch. It feels like somebody's tapping on your wrist. Some of the notifications sound like the maps when you're doing turn-by-turn nav. It gives you a slightly different feel for left turn versus right turn. I found that stuff to be a little bit precious. But the upshot is you don't miss alerts, and it's less noisy to everyone around you.
Yeah. So for
than,
example,
say,
how does
a
it
buzzing
sound
motor.
Like? Right.
So we'll send me a text and you'll hear. You won't hear it.
Or you can actually just do a double tap. Change watch face, and you'll.
Oh, that does do it. Okay. So it just did it. You didn't hear anything, right?
I didn't hear that at all.
Now, by default, it comes with the sounds turned on. So I don't think that's a great move. Like, you don't need the sounds to notice stuff. It kind of helped train you in the first couple of days, but it wasn't important in the long term. So I turned sounds off almost immediately.
Okay.
The bands, like I said, are really easy to swap out. I really like the magnetic clasp on the Milanese loop.
It's very strong.
So it releases a little bit throughout the day. Like if you put pressure, like if you bend your wrist up, and like stretch it, it'll slip a little tiny bit. It's never enough that the heart rate sensor stops working. It's never enough that you feel like you're going to lose the watch. If somebody ran by and tried to grab the watch and steal it from you, they wouldn't be able to yank it off with this.
I'm going to try that right now. Nope.
Yeah, see, it's looser now, but it didn't come off. The way the band's attached, like I said earlier, really, really slick. It is important because if you want to use this as a fitness watch, you're going to need one of these guys. This is the plastic fluoroelastomer. It's plastic.
That's the base band. That's the one recommended for any type of workout.
And I went into the Apple store on the day that I got the watch, the 24th, expecting to be able to just buy some accessories as one does, and then waited until this Wednesday to get the watch band. That's one of the things we've been waiting on, so I could go running with it and see what it was like. The digital crown's really, really good. I don't like the design on the leather bands. Like, I think all of them look cheap for what they're charging for them.
All right, let's take a look at this digital crown, because this is what really Apple says was their big innovation, interface-wise. Of course, with a screen that size, they don't want you to pinch to zoom. It is touchscreen, so you're going to go move around like you were showing earlier in that app list. But you're using that digital crown, that scroll basically, to scroll and to zoom in.
Yeah, and you can zoom in, like literally zoom into apps. So this is the Maps app. We'll talk about app load times in a little bit. They're bad.
The crown has no, I mean, as we showed earlier, the crown doesn't, while it has inertia, it does, in your scrolling.
Notifications list has inertia specifically. No, it doesn't. So yeah, when you give it a good, we're not going to be able to see because it's like the software will continue acting as if the crown is spinning. The crown stops the moment you take your finger off of it. I just got a, my wife wants to know if I ordered Paddington. I did not. Let's see. Nope, I did not. Nope, I did not. Okay, so the crown doesn't have inertia. Like the physical movement doesn't. The software does. I find that that's much more useful on a couple of core apps. So like if I go back to notifications, when you have a long list of notifications, it'll kind of drift up. I only have one this morning, so there's not a lot to show. When you hit the end, it gives you a little bit of feedback, and it gives you a bounce that you can kind of just barely feel. Nice.
And the crown itself, of course, is a button, and that button is that kind of like it's your home button?
It's the equivalent of the home button. So this is both one of the things that I really like and one of the things that I find really confusing about the watch. The home button on the iPhone is one of the smartest things Apple did because it gives people a safe way to go back to someplace that they're familiar with. If you drill way down into an app and you don't know how to get out of there, you can hit the home button and you'll be right back where you go. When you hit the home button on the watch, sometimes it goes to the app menu, sometimes it goes to the watch. When you click it again, it'll go back to the app menu. And then when I go into one of the apps, let's say I go into activity here, when I click it. Is it going to go back to apps or to the watch? I don't know. Sometimes it goes back to the watch. Sometimes it goes back to apps. If you tap it twice, it'll go back to the most recently used app. And if you tap twice again, it takes you back to the watch.
It seems like the problem here is the definition of what home is.
This is exactly the main metaphor for home is, I have no idea what it is. I think it's probably supposed to be the watch face, because if you're in an app or in the app list, notifications and glances, the swipe up and swipe down, don't do anything. You only see them when you're on the watch. See, now that's a great example of what the hell is this thing doing. When I tap it from this menu, it just centers on the clock.
Yep.
So I tap again, it goes back to the clock. Like, there's probably some internal logic here. I've been using this for 5 weeks. I'm a pretty informed user. I don't understand what the internal logic is, which seems to me to be a problem for Apple. So the only place you can see notifications is and the glances, the kind of quick looks at your information, is actually on the from the watch face, which I presume is their home screen.
Now, what about the second button?
The second button is mostly for communication. They call it the side button. When you tap it, it gives you a wheel of all the people that are on your close friends list. This is something you set up in the Apple Watch app on your watch. And so this is my wife. You can click out. Basically, you can do this with your finger. Oops. Well, maybe not. Usually, you can do it with your finger. So you can tap on just the loops, the circles at the edge. I'm going to send Gary a picture. And if you want to send him a picture, then I'll send taps. There we go. So when you
no
click,
approval process.
No approval process. Once you draw it, it's going to go no matter what you do. Even if you back out and try to cancel, you're still sending the picture. So you get one chance.
Apple Snapchat. It's not even saved anywhere.
There's no archive, no way to save it. You can take screenshots, so you can double tap both times. Now there's two other options on this menu. You can call someone by pressing the call button. Not going to do that. Or you can text them. There's a bunch of canned easy replies.
Yeah.
So you can send that. You can also do voice. Hey Gary, I'm recording a video about the Apple Watch. Period. Do you want to hang out this weekend? ?
And this is text, not the actual voice memo.
This is going to give me a choice. So once you send that, it says, hey, do you want to send this as audio? Do you want to send this as text? Sometimes that's hilarious if you do voice text and include punctuation like I do, because then Gary will get a thing that says, oh, Gary sent me a sketch. No,
boy.
Not going to pull it. Not going to show it.
Let's see it. I want to see it. Oh, come on. Let's see it. Oh, come on.
No, oh, yeah, it's just a question mark. Okay, so you can send the text with the voice. If Siri mangles it really badly, you can tap the audio button. It'll just send the audio file, just like Snapchat or something like that. That I find really useful, despite the occasional comic weirdness. The problem with this whole interface is you looked at the number of clicks that took.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be doing this when you're this is not a substitute for using the hands-free feature in your car. Right. It's way too much clicking and looking at the screen to do safely while you're driving.
Well, if you compare that to the Android Wear system, the voice recognition is, I think, much faster on that system, because as you're talking here, it had that delay for the Apple Watch. I don't ever get that delay when using Google Now or Google Search.
Do you get the feedback immediately when you're sending text?
Feedback immediately, and I can activate it just by saying, send a text to Gary Whitta.
So you can do that. You can say, hey Siri, I want to send a text to Gary Whitta, and theoretically it works. I find the Hey Siri stuff to be pretty unreliable.
Oh, of course, you can always activate that just by holding down.
Yeah, you can long press on the digital crown and it'll give you a Siri prompt. So this communications menu, I think, is really smart. It gives you a way to communicate with 10 or 12 people that you communicate most frequently with, whether they use a watch or not. Now, of course, you can send a text, you can make a call from the menu to anyone. In order to send the digital sketches, the taps or the heartbeats, they have to have a watch too.
That's right.
The phone call stuff is surprisingly good. So I've talked to people who have watches, so I can hear how they sound. I've also called people. Works shockingly well.
So if you make a phone call from that menu, are you dialing with the watch and then using the watch as microphone and speaker, or is that just making a phone call on your phone?
I'm gonna pop this up. I'll call you right now. So it's using the phone. It's using the phone to make the call, but the watch will be the speaker and the microphone.
It's dialing.
I'm gonna get in real close so you can hear.
Aha! I will answer this. Go for Norm.
Hey, Norm, how you doing?
I'm recording a video right now.
Hey, me too. So don't hang up. The weird thing about this is that when you're in this call, like on the normal, when you use a Bluetooth headset with iOS, normally the speaker changes to a Bluetooth logo, and you can select which audio interface. You can't do that, as near as I can tell on this.
So on your phone, it's just showing, a dialer.
Yes. It shows the normal thing. It doesn't show up as a normal Bluetooth headset, which means that you can't actually control anything about the call the way you're used to. It doesn't work like a normal hands-free setup. I think that's super weird. I don't understand why they would do that. It means that, like, if I take a call and answer it on my phone, I can't transfer it to the watch if I'd rather be talking on the watch if I'm in the car or something like that.
Right. All right, so does that button do anything else?
Yeah, it actually does. If you double tap it, I'm not going to do it because it'll show my credit card number or the last 4 digits. If you double tap it, it gives you the Apple Pay option. And the interesting thing about that is it actually works whether your phone's with you or not. So if you're out for a run or something like that, you didn't bring your phone with you, you can still go to Whole Foods and get a bottle of water or a coconut water or whatever, whatever healthy beverage you're going to get.
As long as your watch is unlocked.
As long as, and you can unlock your watch with a code, so that's easy. Okay, so let's see, speakerphone. Heart rate sensor, a lot of people complained that it was uncomfortable. I'll take it off so you guys can see.
So this is the sensor on the bottom, and it's detecting your heart rate passively.
No, it's detecting it actively.
Well, you don't have to activate it for it to detect your heart
Yes, that is correct. So these guys right here. Basically, it shines a green light underneath the skin, and then that detects the movement of stuff through capillaries. And by measuring the relative speed, it can say, okay, now your heart's beating, now your heart's not, now your heart's beating, now your heart's not. I've tested it with a polar. Like heart rate sensor, one that you strap around your chest, that is the kind of exercise enthusiast standard for heart rate sensors.
Against one of those, yeah.
Yeah, it seems pretty good. Seems very close. Better than the other fitness trackers I've used that have similar sensors. Not as accurate as the Polar, but within 5%.
I think that kind of passive heart rate detection is really useful.
It's interesting, yeah.
Because phones, you can have a phone that has a heart rate sensor by just putting your finger over the IR on the back, but if you know you're testing your heart rate, or if you have to remember to do it, then the data isn't as useful to you. Now, we briefly talked about the quality of that sapphire glass, how resistant that is to other types of damage, water damage.
So the watch itself is, I want to make sure I get this right, it's IPX7 water resistant. This is an IEC standard that defines basically that the watch can be submerged in up to 1 meter of water for 30 minutes with no damage.
Oh, wow. Which means you can wash your hands with it.
Definitely. So I treat it the same way I treat my 40-year-old Omega, right? I wash my hands with it on, I cook with it on, I brush my teeth. I don't shower with a watch. I don't know anybody who would do that, but I'm sure somebody does. When I have to wash my daughter, when I give her a bath at the end of the day, I'm going to have my hands in the tub, I take it off. But I don't hesitate to wash hands, cook, do dishes, all that kind of stuff with it on, and haven't had any problems. It's really nebulous looking at Apple's warranty policy on this. They don't publish that stuff. I'm really curious to see how they're going to handle water damage on these.
Well, unlike a phone, it's not like there was like a water sensor on the inside.
I'm sure there is, but I mean, it's supposed to be water resistant at least.
Right.
So like the splashes and the sweat in your headphone port on an iPod Nano that they declined warranty coverage on before, that won't fly with this. So we'll see how it goes. But like I said, it's been in water. I haven't had any problems with it. The one thing that is weird about this band in particular, the Milanese Loop, I don't know exactly how I'm going to clean it. If I got flour and stuff in there. I was making pizza a few weeks ago. I just kind of rinsed it off under the sink and it came clean. But if something more than that gets in there, I don't know how I'm going to clean it. I don't know if I can take it to the jeweler or what the process is. So that's pretty much it. See, the charging cable is really nice. This is the one for my wife's sport watch. You can tell because it doesn't have the metal ring around the edge. Same charger. It snaps onto the back. So
is it theoretically the same size as that black circle in the back?
Oh, maybe that's what's different. No, yeah, it is more or less the same size as the black circle in the back. But basically, you just kind of get it close, and it snaps into place. And then you'll get a little icon on the top that says, "Hey, I'm charging."
Okay. How fast does it charge?
It'll top off to about 80% in less than an hour. So if you run out of battery during the day, you can get a top off. I haven't had any battery problems at all with it. I'm finishing most days with about 60% battery life. using it like I would use a Pebble or another watch. I've not charged it a couple of nights just to see what happens. If I wanted to do an overnight trip and maybe didn't want to bring the charger, it usually conks out about 10 o'clock the second day. So I think that's pretty good.
It was one of those things that because it's not just like micro USB, you have to bring the charger.
You have to bring the charger
if you're traveling with it.
Yeah, I mean, I would do a day trip. Like, no problem. I would do a one-night trip, no problem. I wouldn't do a two-night trip because you're not going to have it at the end of the second.
Is there a low power setting?
There is. So well, let's go to the next part first. We'll talk about that stuff in a minute. So the user interface is, like I said, a little confusing on this.
Right. So there's the watch face, which presumably is your base of operations. When you flip your wrist, that's what you want to see. From there are things you can do.
Yes, and the automatic turn-on thing that it does when you flip your wrist up, your watch does that as well. It's pretty good. Like, I quickly trained myself to go ahead and flip it up a moment before I want to see the watch, if that makes sense. Like, I adjusted the way I think, the way I use it to work with it's like a 0.2 of a second lag or 0.3 of a second lag or something like that.
It's one of those things where there are two measurements. One is false positives. Apple probably wants to err in favor of false positives because it's better to have it activate when you didn't need it to activate than it not activate when you want it to, even though that might consume a little more power.
For example, when you're driving and your hand's on the steering wheel, it turns on all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And two, that latency, that response time.
Yeah.
And you think that's good enough. It's not been great on my Android Wear. So
I didn't find it objectionable, and I've been wearing a mechanical watch for the last 5 months. So they've done some really good stuff. Like the way the locking works. So right now the watch is locked. You can tell there's a little lock icon at the top of the screen. I could tap the screen and type in the code, which is a bad experience. But I can also just go up, grab my phone.
And use Touch ID.
I Touch ID it, and it unlocks, and I'm good to go.
And the reason there was that lock there is because you took the watch off.
I took the watch off. I have Apple Pay turned on. I think once you turn Apple Pay on, you have to have a code. Because it stays unlocked as long as it stays on your wrist, I haven't had any problems using the code. Like, the code is the least obnoxious thing I've used on a security device on a handheld device. I think the contextual text responses are super smart. So if you send me a text right now and say you want to know if I want to go to Mars Bar or the sushi place around the corner for lunch, that's probably not the question you actually asked, but it actually parses the text and tries to give you a contextual response. So you can just tap the quick response and get something that's useful.
All right, I sent you a text.
You sent me you know what? Can you send me another one because my phone
Oh
is
my
on.
goodness.
This is a thing we'll talk about in just a second. And this stuff, this sucks.
Oh, let me type it out again.
Type it out. And you're sending all lowercase, so this will be interesting to see if it parses. Because it's good at proper nouns. I don't know if it's good at what it doesn't recognize as proper nouns.
And this is the actual parsing. Before, when you were texting your wife, for example, it had a predetermined list of generic responses, and you can customize those responses, but not specifically for people.
Well, but at the top of the list, it'll put the things that it thinks are context aware from your send. So if, like, she sends me a question and says, "Hey, did you get something?" There we go.
Well, let's show it.
Norman Chan messages, "Hey, do you want to see Mad Max or Ex Machina?" I'm going to hit reply. Mad Max, Ex Machina, not sure.
Wow.
And then I hit the text. But anyway.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, like that stuff is incredibly useful. And I think that's minimal enough that it's probably okay to do like those quick responses even while you're driving. It's just the doing Siri and like trying to read the thing to make sure it sent something that was intelligible. You shouldn't do while driving. The backup and restore stuff, really, really good. So if you have it connected to iCloud on your phone, it just backs up. It doesn't even ask you if you want to back up. When I had to replace my phone and then resync the watch with the phone, basically it was seamless. I reconnected the watch to the phone. It said, "Hey, do you want to use this Apple Watch backup you already have?" I said yes. Everything was back exactly the way it was within like 10 minutes, which is kind of as I would expect. But they've been bad. Apple has been bad with backup and restore stuff in the past, so this was a pleasant surprise.
All right, let's talk about the actual interface. The watch face. Let's go to the watch face.
Okay.
Now you have a selection of watch faces.
This is the chronograph.
This is the chronograph. Apple has loaded how many preset ones?
I think it's 8 or 10. I can go all the way here to the end. We'll run through the list. Some of them are one note enough that I don't think anybody would actually ever use them.
And
Okay.
when you are new, this is your customized version of the presets.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that they did really well is you can't load your own watch faces on. There are enough watch faces that you're going to get something that you're happy with. I found something I was happy with, found 3 that I really like.
And you're customizing them. So
And you can customize them. So, okay, so we have this one. This is like a normal utility face. It has big numbers. It's easy to read. And there's 4 places for complications is what they call them. So things like next calendar appointment, weather outside, sunset, sunrise, stock prices, stuff like that. Okay, I'm going to go through the rest of these really quickly. This modular one is the only digital watch face. I think no, there's another digital watch face, but this is the one. If you want to pack all of the things onto your watch face, use this one. I find this one a little bit busy. Simple. This one is another no numbers, same as utility basically. I think more complications. There's a couple that just have like cool things in the background. This one does flowers, butterflies, jellyfish. This is a color version of the simple one. The chronograph, lets you do stopwatch stuff. Stopwatch is built into the face. Timers are more easily accessible. Mickey Mouse. My daughter really loves that one. The huge digital watch face for the blinds. And that's it.
All right, let's do simple.
Oh, hold on, we missed one. There's solar too. I don't know where solar is.
Oh, that's weird.
It might already be out, so there's nothing you can change on it.
So let's go to simple and customize a simple watch face.
Okay.
There goes solar.
No, here's solar. Solar
And
I
also
love.
planetary as well.
So those two you can only have one of, I guess, because there's no complications. Solar's neat. The ball is the sun. The line is sunrise and sunset, and it tells you where the sun is on the day.
So that's dynamic as well,
That's
based on when sunrise and sunset.
Like, I love that. It's something you can't do on a traditional watch face. Astronomy is the same. Oops. So this is the current face of the Earth, like where the sun is shining on the Earth. Kind of useful. You can see it's dark in Antarctica right now. Oops, drifting. You can switch that to a moon. So here's the moon, current phase of the moon. You can move forward and backward in time on this one, which I love.
You can get your solar system.
And then you can see the Ori. So if you played Skyrim and you know what an Ori is, Oblivion and know what an Ori is, you can see all of the planets here, and you can cycle through the future to see when they're going to be where.
The alignments
and
of the
guess
spheres.
what? In 344 days, Mars and Earth are going to be real close. So
and you can also double tap your home button if you want to get a listing. There you go.
Yeah, just tap the screen. So like the watch faces are pretty good. Let's walk through the customization. Right. I think the simple one is a good one to show. Just because you can do a lot with it. Okay, so this is how I have simple set up by default. Basically arms, a sweep hand, and red highlights with a couple of complications. You can turn on as much or as little detail as you want, all the way down to seconds for the sweep hand. You can dial all that back to have nothing. You can't change a ton, but the stuff you can change is actually meaningful and makes it look different. You can change the color of the highlights, or just leave them as white if you want. Oops, wrong way. I'm using the digital crown for all of this. Actually, I guess you can't do them as white, or maybe I just missed it. Anyway. And then you can change the complications. So this particular watch face has 5 complications. They don't all fit in the same places, and you can't add your own complications. But you can see what's available, like date, time, calendar. Calendar is going to be your next appointment. Moon phase, sunrise, sunset, activity. All of this stuff is here. Even down to battery, if you're concerned about battery.
And presumably over time they'll add more complications. Hey, look, it's time to stand up.
It's time to stand up and move for 1 minute. Okay, thanks, watch. If you use the chronograph, which is the one I find myself using more often than not. Oops, where'd it go? The one thing that changes is this top right complication is always a stopwatch. You tap it, it stops. There's laps. Like, this is actually surprisingly useful. I find myself using this for tea timing and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's much easier than on your phone loading up a clock app and then switching over to the chronograph tab, stopwatch tab.
You can also do timers. So if you want, and it saves your last setting. So if you want to do a 3-minute tea timer or 4-minute tea timer, you totally can.
That's very useful. And like I said, presumably over time, new complications will be added as Apple updates the system.
I would hope so.
New things, or gets integration with other applications. So you swiped down earlier from the top for your notifications.
Yep.
And then there's also glances.
Yeah, so glances are one of those things that seemed like it would be really cool, right? I love the idea of having quick access to the information that I care about most. The performance on glances, pretty bad. It's gotten better with the 1.01 update, but there's always this massive load time, and it's never clear that the information you're seeing is up to date. So this is the Dark Sky glance. Dark Sky is a really awesome weather app that looks at like cloud and rainfall movement versus your location on a map and tells you when it's going to rain.
This is the equivalent
with high accuracy.
Widgets for these apps.
They're basically widgets. This seems like it's accurate because this is 8.5 hours of daylight remaining. This one is, see, it just said updated yesterday. This is the default weather view.
Yep.
And then this one is the Yahoo weather view. And see, it's you never know. They aren't giving you enough context to know if they're up to date. The native ones, like the default calendar app that comes with iOS, pretty good. Like because it's running natively on the watch, it updates with some background frequency, and the data doesn't need to be super current. Almost all of the one thing I will say is there are a ton of apps for this thing right now. Most of them are not particularly good. I don't think that's really the app maker's fault as much as it is the fact that most of the stuff is happening on the phone, and there's a multi-step process to connect the watch to the phone, connect the app to the app on the phone, and then start pulling data from the internet. So you're waiting too long for anything to happen.
And when you say that, you mean there are a ton of compatible phone apps that have counterparts that work on the watch.
Yeah, if you go into the watch, into the phone, and in the Apple Watch app on the phone, look at the apps that have watch versions of their apps. It's amazing, considering that we're a month in.
And that stuff also is slow to load.
Yeah, the apps are super slow to load. The glance is like this should be super useful, right? This is automatic. It tells me where I parked.
Yep.
I usually know where I park because I park in 3 places. But if you park all over the place, it would be handy. This one actually showed. This is actually updating fairly fast. So the 1.01 update has helped with this stuff a ton. It's still, especially with the weather apps, you'll frequently pull them up and the watch will turn off before that data loads, which is unfortunate.
One method of input that we have actually talked about, and you've been showing it as you change watch faces, is the force press.
Mm-hmm. So the force press is this new thing. So there's 2 ways to interact with this, right? You can tap, doesn't do anything on this screen, or you can tap and then press a little harder, and that's a force press. It's one of the big problems with this is that there's a lot of behaviors and a lot of things that you need to do that don't really have any cues whatsoever that you can do them. So, like, the onboarding process tells you can customize watch faces by force pressing. Nothing else tells you to force press. So, for example, I'm going to pull up. I'm going to go back to a glance.
You think of this as the equivalent of as a right click on the desktop.
Yeah, it's close to a right click as well.
And when you're using Windows or OS 10, you assume right click has a default action in Finder in most applications. Here, on phones, on mobile, there is no equivalent.
I force press on the calendar, nothing happens.
Right.
I force press on the player, nothing happens.
It's wiggling.
I force press here, nothing happens.
And you also feel the haptic feedback.
You don't actually on this one.
You don't?
No, when it doesn't do anything, you don't feel the haptic feedback.
So all you see is the wiggle.
Yeah, so none of the glances do force presses, I guess.
So at least you know it's triggering a force press, but there's no associated action.
Yeah, but if I force press on here, I can clear all my notifications.
Got it.
Like some of the stuff that you use force presses for are incredibly useful and important. They don't tell you that stuff anywhere. For example, on the music app, which I find myself using fairly regularly, if you want to change the source for the music that you're listening to, you can either store one playlist on the Apple Watch, or you can remote control the phone. You have to force press to do that. And I had no way of, it doesn't prompt you to do that until you're trying to use music when you're out of range from the phone.
Even if you're not interested in the Apple Watch, this is presumably a technology that Apple is going to incorporate in a future iPhone. That's what all the rumors say.
I would think so.
It's something that, if it's a problem right now on the watch, the queuing of a Force Touch, it's something that developers and Apple's going to figure out how to queue users to let them know how to do that in a future phone.
Yeah, like if you think about how right clicks are queued, basically, anywhere you can click, you can probably right click and something will happen. With this, this is a Wild West basically of UI UX design. Okay, so there's also no cues for swiping. It isn't just force press. This is a problem for. So look, if you look at notifications and you want to get rid of just one, you can swipe to the side and then tap the clear. That's universal for all iOS notifications that come across. It handles notifications a little bit differently if it's a native app or a non-native app. So if you send me another text, I'll have different options with the notification than I would with, say, an email. So with this email, like the only notification options I have are done or dismiss. Both of those do the same thing as near as I can tell. One of them removes them from the list, the other one doesn't. Nope, they both remove them from the list. There are some more undocumented things that are really useful. Like when you have a notification open for that, handoff works. So you can open your phone and there'll be a little icon in the lower left-hand corner of the screen that says, "Hey, you can go to Inbox by Google," even if the watch doesn't, even if there's no watch app for the iOS app in question.
And this handoff thing you're talking about is when you do something on the watch, it can't display that information or actually do that function on the watch. So it's just sending that data to the phone to open a website, for example, for a search query.
It works the same way as handoff does between the iPad, the iPhone, and the Mac. In that if you're doing something here and you keep that screen open while you get the phone out, it'll give you the option to continue that thing.
That's
on
one
the
of the
other
things
device.
I was disappointed by with the Siri integration. If you're searching with Siri and it doesn't tap into Wolfram Alpha or in its Apple's knowledge graph, have a appropriate response.
Are there any planes overhead right now, Siri? Yeah. So
it'll
here's
try to send it
handoff.
to the phone as opposed to on Android
There's the
Wear.
option.
If you're searching a question with Google Now, it'll at least display the first several web results.
Yeah.
The headlines.
So it pulled the word notes from there and just opened my notes, which is super weird.
Yeah. Now, you got the new band. You've
got the
done
new
some
band.
light exercising with it. When you're running with it, like you said, you don't need to have your phone. It'll still do your heartbeat monitoring. It'll still you can still use Apple Pay. What changes when you're exercising with this watch?
So there's two modes basically. There's activity tracking and there's exercise mode. Activity tracking works just like the $50 Fitbit, where it's essentially a fancy pedometer. The big addition is that this does do the passive heart rate tracking throughout the day. So if I go into my phone app, which I will as soon as it unlocks, you can go into the Apple Health app and you'll see your heart rate. It literally is tracking your heart rate constantly when you're wearing the watch, which is, you know, I talked to my doctor about it when I was there the other day. He was like, this is good background information to have. It gives you a good sense of your overall health. It isn't as super useful from a medical standpoint. So here's my heart rate for the week. Wednesday I went for a run, so I spiked up to 180 or 160 or something while I was running. And then you can see there's literal like recordings for the entire time, and it records every 10 minutes or so. Right. 10 minutes to an hour, I guess.
And this data is saved on your phone. Apple doesn't get access to this data, or they haven't said whether they're going to use anything with it.
It's your data. I haven't read the privacy policy. No one has gotten pissed off about the privacy policy. There are sites whose entire existence is just to read privacy policies and get rage when weird things happen. Okay, so the passive activity tracking is one thing. The exercise tracking is the other. When you put it into exercise mode, and I'll show you how that works. Basically, there's an app here somewhere. Here it is. It's the little green guy running.
Got it. So you have to actually activate that. It's not like if it thinks your heartbeat suddenly spikes, or if it thinks the pedometer is moving fast, it'll switch.
It
that
doesn't
mode.
turn on automatically. It's not like Runkeeper, which is always kind of running in the background.
Got it.
Oh, there we go. First running workout. Thanks. So I just got the watch band on Wednesday. We were traveling yesterday, so I've only had one run with this so far. I have done a couple of walks before. Basically, when you start your exercise, you pick the type of activity you're going to do.
That's
so
interesting.
I got on the elliptical for about 10 minutes with the Milanese loop on it early on before I had set up the watch all the way. It seems to track about the same as the elliptical does, like the heart rate sensor on the elliptical.
And presumably, Apple did research. They have that fitness lab where they tested their employees on these different scenarios. So they're tracking caloric burn, pedometers, steps differently, whether you're doing a walk, elliptical, or a run.
Well, so I'm not an expert. My understanding is that when they're tracking, once you track heart rate, you can get a much better idea of caloric burn. Like that's the most accurate way of tracking your caloric burn that you're going to realistically use. So assuming they're getting accurate heart rate tracking, then they should have a pretty good idea of your resting versus active caloric burn based on that. The distance, when you do the first run, You basically calibrate it. It says to do the first 20 minutes of activity with the phone in hand, because presumably it's using GPS and accelerometers on the phone as well as on the watch.
And you lose GPS when you don't have the phone.
Yeah, so when you don't have the phone, you lose GPS, which means if you're used to using, say, a Garmin to track your runs or bicycle rides or whatever, and have access to all of that information, that all goes away when you turn off you take the phone away. It seemed pretty accurate. The first run I did was a little bit off. I adjusted. The next walk was much better. So I assume that if you keep tweaking the actual distance run versus the distance it thinks you ran without the phone, it'll get better. Or if you do an occasional run with the phone, I think it'll stay accurate. The caloric burn seemed on par with what the Polar said based on my heart rate. So I feel like that stuff's better than the other watches that we've tested. So like the Pebble has Jawbone integration. If you want to do that, you can kind of see what you're doing, or Runkeeper integration. I feel like the heart rate sensor actually adds a lot. But using the heart rate sensor almost constantly during an exercise session really destroys the battery. Where on days that I don't exercise, I end with 50 or 60% battery left, somewhere in there, sometimes 40 on a big day. On days that I exercise, it was usually 20 or 30. And a couple of days I saw, like even after just a big walk, you'd see a hey, do you want to put on your power savings mode at the end of the day?
What else can you do when you're in exercise mode?
You can sync a playlist of songs to the watch for exercise purposes.
With iTunes or the music player on your phone.
So the way it works is you go into the Apple Watch app, you select the playlist that you've made in the music app on your phone, presumably on iTunes if you use iTunes Match, and then it copies those files over to the phone. You need a pair of Bluetooth headphones to use that. I used these guys. These are the Jackbox. Is that right? Jaybird Blue Box X, Blue Bud X. It's the Wirecutter recommendation for wireless earbuds.
So these are Bluetooth. They don't look too big or intrusive.
I got them to do the exercise testing with. I think they're awesome. Like I'd never had wireless earbuds before. I've only had wireless headphones. The wireless earbuds are amazing in terms of not having cables to deal with. And like it has the full 3-button controller, so you can fast forward, or, take calls, rewind, all that stuff. And you pair them directly with the watch, which was the
That's
key.
good. You actually don't have to carry your phone.
And after running with my phone for the last 2 or 3 years, running without the phone, really nice. It's just it's a lot less to deal with. You don't have the cable flapping around from your armband or your not cool fanny pack thing, whatever you choose to use. It was a really good experience. So yeah, you change the source. Now it's on the Apple Watch. You can see got it. Blue Buds X. I didn't have them turned on. Okay. And now, you jump into your playlist. You can only copy the one playlist. It's up to a gig. In reality, I did 25 songs, which is as much as I ever run for, and it worked well. That didn't seem to impact the battery. I sometimes listen to music on it while I'm just sitting at my desk.
Can you do podcasts?
If you have them on iTunes, you can. If you don't, you can't. Right now, there's no native apps for the watch, so there's no RDO, there's no Spotify. It's all running off of your phone. So that means if your phone's not connected to the watch, even stuff like the Overcast app isn't going to work right.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah, it sucks.
I mean, hopefully in the future is one of those things where if you subscribe to RDO or Spotify and you pay for remote playback, you can sync a playlist.
One would hope that. I think Spotify has offline. I get both RDO and Spotify have offline syncing. So yeah, the native apps is a part of the timeline for later this year. As I understand, I'm not sure if that's rumor or Apple's statement.
All right. Now, one of the things you talked about earlier about going back and forth, whether you like this, was the inconsistency with notifications.
Yeah. So this is a good example. If I have my watch on, I'm driving, I'm using my phone for GPS in the car. I get a notification on my phone. I get somebody sends me a text message. The notification pops up on my phone. It's never gonna come up on the watch. That is maddening, especially if you like. I spent a lot of time driving last week for reasons we can't get into. When you're trying to use the watch as a way to kind of keep up with what's going on in the world around you, when you're maybe, say, driving a car and can't look at your phone, shouldn't look at your phone, that sucks.
So this is Apple saying that if you see the notification on your phone, you don't need it on the watch, or vice versa. In reality, that's not how people actually want to use glanceable notifications.
That's not how I want to use glanceable notifications. What I want is a list that syncs between the devices that's basically, hey, here's all the notifications you've gotten that you haven't cleared on any device. Boom. Get rid of them all, get rid of this one, I've addressed this, whatever. If you're trying to use your notifications as a kind of impromptu task list, it's not going to work for you.
Yeah.
I know
Sync the
Pebble
clearing.
works the right way.
Right, sync the clearing of it, but not the displaying of it.
Exactly. I know Android Wear works the way I would expect, as does Pebble. So hopefully they'll add a setting for this. It's not the end of the world, but it is. I found it frustrating. It's the one thing that I didn't like about their handling of notifications. If you wanted to rate the things that I use this for, the most useful features, it's notifications, the communication stuff, the texting, and the drawing is surprisingly useful. Like you can send a little two word note to someone without having to look at the phone really or the watch. It's pretty good. The voice stuff is really good. The phone call is surprisingly useful. Like it's easier than getting out a Bluetooth headset and you kind of hassle off it. So you hold it up here. The speaker could be a little bit louder. It's not great. And then after that, it's like a tie for 5th place. The native glances, this thing is incredibly useful. This button right here, do you know what that does?
Find my phone. Boop, 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 boop.
And it makes the big noise. So it means I don't have to go find my laptop or another computer and bing that when my daughter grabs the phone.
Yeah.
This is the kind of the control center view for glances that we're looking at. So you can make the watch silent. That doesn't adjust the phone because the phone has a physical switch. But if I put the watch into Do Not Disturb mode, then the phone will be in Do Not Disturb mode too. You see the little moon up there.
Very cool.
Same thing for airplane mode, but obviously the airplane mode switches one way. When you put the watch into airplane mode, it puts the phone into airplane mode too.
And so you have no Bluetooth connection.
So then you have no Bluetooth connection to turn the phone back out of airplane mode.
Yeah.
I don't see a way around that. This is the other incredibly useful glance. This is how much battery you have left.
There you go.
And when you put it in power reserve, it turns off all the connectivity except for telling the current time. You get a digital watch for that. The other one that's good is the music player. So this just is an interface for music playback on the device. I apparently was listening to the Bombcast on the way in, so that's the most recent thing. But that hooks into not just the music app, but anything that you're using that plays audio, including stuff like YouTube and video playback on Safari and stuff like that.
Think of swiping up from the bottom on iOS.
It's the same exact thing, yeah. So the third-party glances are less useful. Apple Pay is actually kind of good. At the same time, using Passbook. Yesterday, I tried to use Passbook to check into the airplane. Worked fine at the TSA checkpoint, but the thing that you actually slide the boarding pass under at the gate, my wrist and the watch together were too chunky to go under there, so I had to bust out my phone.
All right.
It's kind of a mixed bag on that. And then the exercise and activity stuff is kind of useful and good.
I mean, it sounds like you said, it's a first-generation device.
Yeah.
It's expensive for in the range of smartwatches out there. It does a lot of things better. Obviously, has great industrial design. The things that may have been a concern, battery life, not a big concern. But the things that kind of pave the path for the future, apps, that stuff yet to be seen.
I mean, we'll know more presumably after WWDC in a few weeks, and then again later this year, hopefully when they release native apps. I'm optimistic. Like the performance of stuff like scrolling the app screen on this is good enough. Like it feels like that feels fast to me.
Yeah, and it's something that Apple has prioritized. The smoothness of interface.
Right. So my hope is that when we see native apps, that stuff will be better. As always, don't buy stuff based on hopes, right? Buy stuff based on what it does today, especially when you're talking about a company that's as secretive as Apple. There are huge questions about this watch. Is this band standard? Is this the standard for the watch going forward? Are they going to change this next year? So if you buy a $500 Link bracelet for a watch, are you going to have to replace that if you replace your watch next year?
Hopefully not.
We don't know.
We don't know.
They haven't said. Presumably, I would hope not, but you never know. One thing that people did ask a lot about, it's an OLED screen, works reasonably well outside. There's two different models. 38 and 42. Slightly different resolutions for the two screens. In reality, there's no appreciable difference between the two. I wish the screen was a tiny bit brighter on bright sunny days. Yep. I think you've said the same thing about your watch too.
Yep.
The Pebble definitely wins on that category. So yeah, that's it. That's the takeaway. I think it's a good first try. It is less good than I would hope for the price that they're charging.
There are alternatives out there on Android platforms, on platform agnostics. Pebble Time coming out soon. We'll of course be testing those as well. This is really early adopter product for iPhone products. Apple
for people
users.
who are really into iPhones, in the same way that I think the Android Wear stuff is for Android users. And I really, if you think that this is going to help you manage notifications, I think the much better thing that you can do, rather than go out and spend $350 for the sport model, $550 for the stainless model, is to just go in your notifications thing and turn everything off except for text messages and like 2 other things, and then see where you're at. Like, this isn't going to change the way you live your life if you're already a jerk about using your phone when you should be spending time with family and friends. Yeah. And also, when it buzzes and you know that you need to look at it, it still seems super rude when you look at your watch. It's much more rude, I think, to look at your watch than to look at your phone. Because the phone, looking at your watch has the, oh, do you have someplace to be stigma, where everybody just expects people to be rude with their phone now. So that's it. It's the Apple Watch. It's out now. This is the stainless steel edition with the Milanese loop. The plastic band is nice too. If I were buying it today, and I absolutely had to have one, I would buy the plastic band version and wait 3 months, because there's third-party bands coming that are licensed from Apple. There are already like crowdfunding projects for normal 22 millimeter band attachments for the Apple Watch. Like, you're not going to be stuck with these bands forever, and these bands are crazy expensive for what they are, especially the leather bands.
And the plastic one is the preferred one for exercise anyway.
And the plastic one is much better than I expected. It's not a swatch band. You don't get a sweaty arm underneath it. It feels very pleasant. Didn't have any allergy issues or anything like that. I thought it was much better than I expected.
Cool.
Plastic.
That's the Apple Watch. If you have questions, post them in the comments below. Otherwise, we'll have more tech products on test.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you later.
Thanks for watching, gang.
Bye.